Your Ford's transmission cooler is the only thing standing between a healthy drivetrain and a $4,000 rebuild. And right now, 6 common towing habits are silently destroying it. I've been a Ford technician for over 15 years, and I've watched owner after owner roll into the shop with burnt fluid and transmissions that gave up thousands of miles early. Habit number 2 is so widespread that Ford forums are filled with owners who didn't realize the damage until it was too late. And habit number 1 is the silent killer Ford will never warn you about. Pay close attention. Let's start with a towing habit that seems completely harmless, but is quietly cooking your transmission from the inside. Habit number 6, towing without confirming you actually have an auxiliary transmission cooler. This sounds basic, but you would not believe how many Ford owners hook up a trailer and start towing heavy loads without ever checking whether their truck has the proper cooling equipment to handle it. Here's what most people do not understand. Not every Ford F-150, Ranger, or Explorer comes with a dedicated external transmission cooler. Ford offers different tow packages depending on trim level and options, and the cooling hardware varies dramatically between them. The base configuration on many Ford trucks uses what is called an ion tank cooler. This is a small heat exchanger built inside your engine radiator. Transmission fluid flows through a chamber inside the radiator and transfers heat to the engine coolant. This system works adequately for light-duty driving and occasional hauling of small loads. But here is the problem. The in-tank cooler shares cooling capacity with your engine. When you are towing a 6,000-pound trailer on a hot day, your engine coolant is already running at 200 to 220 degrees. Your transmission fluid is flowing through a cooler that is surrounded by that same hot coolant. The transmission fluid can never cool below the engine coolant temperature. Under towing loads, the transmission generates significantly more heat than normal driving. The torque converter creates friction heat, the clutch packs generate heat during shifts, and the fluid pump works harder pushing fluid through the system. All that heat needs somewhere to go, and if your only cooling path is a small chamber inside an already hot radiator, the fluid temperature climbs rapidly into the danger zone. Ford's trailer tow package includes a dedicated auxiliary transmission cooler mounted in front of the radiator. This separate cooler uses ambient airflow to cool transmission fluid independently from the engine cooling system. It is a plate fin or stacked plate design that provides dramatically more cooling capacity than the in-tank system. Without this auxiliary cooler, towing loads above 3,500 pounds puts your transmission fluid at risk of sustained temperatures above 240 degrees. At 240 degrees, transmission fluid begins breaking down chemically. The friction modifiers degrade, the fluid thins out, and its ability to protect clutch packs and bearings diminishes rapidly. Every 20-degree increase above normal operating temperature cuts fluid life roughly in half. I have seen transmissions fail at 70,000 miles on trucks that towed regularly without an auxiliary cooler. The owner assumed that because the truck had a hitch receiver and a trailer brake controller, it was ready to tow. But those components do not include a transmission cooler. The solution is straightforward. Before you tow anything substantial, verify your truck's build sheet or window sticker. Look specifically for the trailer tow package, not just a hitch receiver. If you do not have the auxiliary cooler, either add one aftermarket for $150 to $300 installed, or limit your towing to lighter loads. An aftermarket plate fin cooler mounted in front of your condenser can add 30% or more cooling capacity and could be the difference between a transmission that lasts 200,000 miles and one that fails at 80,000. Habit number 5 is something I see constantly on trucks that come in with overheating transmissions, and it has nothing to do with how much weight you're pulling. Habit 5, never cleaning the front of your truck. Your transmission cooler is mounted at the very front of your vehicle, directly behind the bumper and in front of the air conditioning condenser and radiator. It relies entirely on AIR flow passing through its fins to dissipate heat. When that airflow gets blocked, the cooler can't do its job, and your transmission fluid temperature starts climbing. You'd be amazed at what accumulates on the front of a truck that tows regularly. Bugs, road debris, leaves, cottonwood seeds, mud, and dust pack into the narrow gaps between cooler fins over time. I have pulled trucks apart for transmission overheating complaints and found the cooler fins so clogged with compacted insect residue and road grime that less than half the surface area was exposed to airflow. The cooler was essentially suffocating. This is especially common on trucks that tow through rural areas or down gravel roads. Fine dust coats the cooler surface and combines with moisture to form a hard crust that normal driving speeds cannot dislodge. Bug buildup is even worse because the protein and fluid content dries into a cement-like residue that bonds to the metal fins. Some owners make the problem worse by installing aftermarket bug screens, mesh grill guards, or heavy bull bars across the front of the truck. Every layer of material you add between the cooler and the incoming air reduces airflow. A bug screen might keep your cooler cleaner initially, but a dirty bug screen blocks more air than a moderately dirty cooler would. The transmission cooler needs unrestricted airflow to function properly, especially under towing loads when fluid temperatures are elevated. Even a 10 to 15% reduction in airflow can raise transmission fluid temperatures by 20 to 30 degrees during heavy towing. That is the difference between operating safely at 200 degrees Fahrenheit and creeping into the danger zone above 240 degrees Fahrenheit. The fix takes 15 minutes and costs almost nothing. Every few months, and definitely before any major towing trip, spray the front of your cooler stack with a garden hose from the engine bay side, pushing water outward through the fins. This flushes debris out the front rather than pushing it deeper into the cooler. For stubborn buildup, use a coil cleaner spray designed for air conditioning condensers. Let it soak for 10 minutes, then rinse thoroughly. If you have installed a bug screen, remove it periodically and clean both the screen and the cooler behind it, and consider whether the screen is actually necessary. A truck that tows regularly benefits more from maximum airflow than from a marginally cleaner cooler surface. If you are finding this information valuable, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe right now, because the next 4 habits are the ones responsible for the most expensive transmission failures I see in the shop. Habit number 4 is one of the most dangerous things you can do while towing, and millions of truck owners do it every single day without thinking twice. Habit 4, using cruise control while towing through hills or rolling terrain. Cruise control is designed to maintain a constant speed regardless of what the terrain is doing. On flat highway with no trailer, that's perfectly fine. But when you're pulling 5,000 to 10,000 pounds through hilly terrain, cruise control turns your transmission into a heat-generating disaster. Here's what happens mechanically. When you approach an incline while towing with cruise control active, the system detects your speed dropping and responds by demanding full throttle and aggressively downshifting to maintain the set speed. The transmission drops 1, 2, sometimes 3 gears in rapid succession. Engine revolutions per minute spike. The torque converter slips more to multiply torque output. The clutch packs engage harder during these aggressive shifts. All of this generates enormous heat in the transmission fluid. Then you crest the hill, the load decreases, and cruise control allows the transmission to upshift rapidly back to highway gears. A minute later, you hit the next incline and the entire cycle repeats. Downshift, spike, heat, upshift, downshift again. This constant gear hunting is one of the fastest ways to overheat transmission fluid. In rolling terrain, the transmission might cycle through 50 or 60 unnecessary gear changes per hour that a human driver would have avoided simply by allowing speed to fluctuate naturally by 5 or 10 miles per hour on the inclines. Professional truckers call this gear hunting the transmission killer because the rapid cycling does not give the fluid time to cool between heat events. The transmission cooler can only dissipate heat so fast. When heat generation outpaces heat dissipation for sustained periods, fluid temperatures climb past 260 degrees and stay there. At that temperature, seals begin to harden, clutch pack friction material deteriorates, and the fluid itself starts varnishing internal components. A single long towing session through mountain passes with cruise control active can do permanent damage that shows up weeks or months later as rough shifting, delayed engagement, or complete transmission failure. The solution is simple. Turn cruise control off when towing through any terrain that is not flat. Manage your speed manually and allow it to drop naturally on inclines rather than forcing the transmission to maintain a fixed speed. If you lose 5 miles per hour going uphill, that is fine. Your transmission fluid stays 40 degrees cooler, your clutch packs survive thousands of additional cycles, and your cooler is not overwhelmed trying to shed heat faster than the transmission can generate it. If your Ford has adaptive cruise control with tow haul integration, that system handles shifts somewhat better, but manual speed management on hilly terrain is always the safest choice for your transmission. Habit number 3 is something that catches owners off guard because they think they are maintaining their truck properly when they are actually starving it of the protection it needs most. Habit 3, running old or degraded transmission fluid while towing regularly. Transmission fluid is not just a lubricant, it is the lifeblood of your cooling system. The fluid itself is the heat transfer medium. It absorbs heat from the torque converter, clutch packs, and gear sets, carries that heat to the cooler, releases it through the cooler fins, and returns to the transmission, ready to absorb more heat. When that fluid degrades, the entire cooling cycle breaks down. Fresh transmission fluid has a specific viscosity and thermal conductivity designed to absorb and release heat efficiently. As the fluid ages, particularly under towing stress, it oxidizes and thins out. The friction modifiers break down, the detergent additives become depleted. Carbon particles from clutch pack wear contaminate the fluid and reduce its ability to transfer heat. Degraded fluid does not just protect your gears poorly, it literally cannot cool your transmission effectively anymore. The same cooler that keeps fresh fluid at 200 degrees might only cool degraded fluid to 230 degrees or 240 degrees because the fluid's thermal properties have changed. You could have a perfectly functioning cooler and still overheat your transmission because the fluid is too far gone to do its job. Ford's recommended transmission fluid change interval for normal driving is typically 150,000 miles on many newer models. But that interval assumes normal driving conditions. Towing is classified as severe duty, and under severe duty conditions, many Ford technicians recommend changing transmission fluid every 30,000 to 50,000 miles. Yet most owners follow the normal interval because they do not realize towing changes the maintenance equation so dramatically. I have inspected transmission fluid from trucks that tow boat trailers every weekend during summer. By 40,000 miles, the fluid is dark brown, smells burnt, and has lost most of its friction-modifying properties. The cooler lines are coated with varnish that restricts flow. The cooler itself has internal deposits reducing its efficiency. A transmission fluid exchange at that point costs $150 to $300 depending on the shop and whether you use Mercon LV or equivalent. A transmission rebuild because you waited too long costs $3,500 to $5,500. The math speaks for itself. If you tow regularly, even just a few times per month, shorten your fluid change interval dramatically. Check the fluid condition before and after long towing trips. Healthy fluid is translucent and red or light amber. If it is dark brown, opaque, or smells burnt, change it immediately, regardless of mileage. Your cooler can only work with what you give it, and old fluid is working against the cooler rather than with it. Habit number 2 is the single most common mistake I see Ford owners make while towing, and it is responsible for more premature transmission cooler failures than probably any other factor. Habit 2, towing in normal mode or eco mode instead of tow haul mode. Ford engineers spent years developing tow haul mode specifically to protect your drivetrain during towing. When you press that tow haul button, the transmission computer completely reprograms shift points, torque converter lockup strategy, and engine braking behavior. Every change is designed to reduce heat generation and keep your transmission within safe operating temperatures. In normal mode, the transmission shifts into higher gears, as quickly as possible to maximize fuel economy and smooth out the driving experience. The torque converter unlocks at lower speeds to improve ride comfort. The transmission allows the vehicle to coast freely on downhill grades. This is perfect for daily driving, but it is a disaster when towing heavy loads. When you tow in normal mode, the transmission stays in overdrive gears longer than it should under load. The engine lugs at low revolutions per minute while the transmission clutch packs absorb the stress of maintaining speed. The torque converter cycles between locked and unlocked states repeatedly as the load fluctuates, creating enormous friction heat with each slip cycle. On downhill grades, the transmission stays in high gear and the brakes do all the work of controlling speed, while the transmission fluid continues heating up from the sustained load on the drivetrain. Tow haul mode fixes every one of these problems. It holds lower gears longer, keeping the engine in its power band where it operates most efficiently. The torque converter locks up more aggressively and stays locked, eliminating the slip cycles that generate so much heat. On downhill grades, the transmission automatically downshifts to provide engine braking, reducing brake temperatures, and giving the transmission cooler a chance to dissipate heat. The difference in transmission fluid temperature between towing in normal mode and tow haul mode can be 30 to 50 degrees under identical conditions. That's not a marginal improvement. That's the difference between fluid that lasts 100,000 miles and fluid that's destroyed in 30,000. For eco mode, the situation is even worse. Eco mode actively limits power output and keeps engine speed, revolutions per minute, as low as possible. Under towing loads, this forces the engine to lug harder, the transmission to slip more, and the entire drivetrain to generate more heat while delivering less performance. The cost of the damage far exceeds any fuel savings. Every single time you hitch a trailer to your Ford, the first thing you should do after starting the engine is press the tow haul button. Make it as automatic as putting on your seatbelt. If you've been towing in normal mode and notice your transmission shifting roughly, slipping between gears, or if you've seen transmission temperature warnings on your dashboard, have the fluid inspected immediately. Overheated fluid appears dark brown or black and smells burnt. A fluid exchange now could prevent a catastrophic failure later. Before we get to the number one habit, if you're finding this valuable, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell. Your engagement helps other Ford owners discover this critical information before it's too late. Habit number one is the silent killer of Ford transmissions and coolers, and it's the one habit that combines with every other mistake on this list to guarantee the most expensive outcome possible. Habit one, towing at or near maximum capacity in extreme heat without monitoring transmission temperature. This is where everything comes together. High ambient temperatures, heavy loads, and zero awareness of what's happening inside your transmission. It's the perfect storm, and it destroys more Ford transmissions than any other single behavior pattern. Here is the physics that most owners don't consider. Your transmission cooler is an air-to-fluid heat exchanger. It can only cool the transmission fluid below the ambient air temperature by a certain amount. On a 60-degree day, the cooler might bring fluid down to 180 degrees under heavy towing. On a 100-degree day, that same cooler under the same load might only bring fluid down to 240 degrees. The hotter the outside air, the less effective your cooler becomes. Ambient temperature doesn't just reduce cooling efficiency, it compounds with every other heat source. The engine runs hotter, the road surface radiates heat upward, and the AC condenser dumps additional heat right in front of the transmission cooler, preheating the air before it even reaches the cooler fins. Now add a heavy trailer to this equation. You are towing 8,000 pounds through Texas in July at 75 miles per hour. The engine is working hard, the transmission is cycling through gears under maximum load, the torque converter is generating peak friction heat, and your transmission cooler is trying to shed all that thermal energy into 105-degree air that has already been preheated by your AC condenser. The cooler can't keep up. Fluid temperature climbs past 250 degrees and stays there for hours. The fluid oxidizes rapidly. Seal materials harden and begin leaking. Clutch pack friction surfaces glaze over and start slipping, which generates even more heat in a vicious cycle. Internal transmission components warp from sustained thermal stress. By the time you reach your destination, the damage is done. The transmission might work for another few thousand miles, but the internal wear is accelerated beyond recovery. Ford builds tough trucks, but no transmission cooler can overcome the laws of thermodynamics when you stack maximum load, maximum ambient temperature, and sustained highway speeds on top of each other. The solution requires awareness and adaptation. First, monitor your transmission temperature. Most modern Fords display transmission fluid temperature through the instrument cluster information display. Learn where it is and check it regularly while towing. Normal operating temperature runs between 175 and 220 degrees. Above 230 degrees, you should be concerned. Above 250 degrees, you need to take immediate action. If temperatures climb above 230 degrees while towing, reduce your speed by 5 to 10 miles per hour. Speed reduction dramatically decreases aerodynamic drag on the trailer, which reduces engine and transmission load. If temperatures continue climbing, turn off the AIR conditioning temporarily. This removes condenser heat that is preheating the air reaching your transmission cooler. If you are on an extended incline, downshift manually to keep engine revolutions per minute higher. Higher engine revolutions per minute mean the fluid pump moves more volume through the cooler each minute, improving heat dissipation. In extreme cases, pull over and let the truck idle for 5 to 10 minutes. The cooler continues working while the transmission generates minimal heat, and fluid temperatures drop rapidly when the load is removed. On extremely hot days, consider towing during cooler morning or evening hours. A 20-degree drop in ambient temperature can reduce transmission fluid temperatures by 15 to 25 degrees under load. And if you are consistently towing heavy loads in hot climates, invest in an upgraded aftermarket transmission cooler. A larger cooler with more surface area provides the additional capacity needed to handle the worst conditions. It is a $200 to $400 investment that protects a $4,000 to $5,000 transmission. Your transmission cooler isn't invincible, and it was never designed to compensate for bad towing habits. But when you give it clean airflow, fresh fluid, proper drive mode selection, and reasonable operating conditions, it will protect your transmission for hundreds of thousands of miles. Take action today. Check your cooler for debris, verify you have the proper tow package, switch to tow haul mode every time you hitch up, change your fluid on a severe duty schedule, ditch cruise control on hills, and monitor your temperatures in the heat. If you found this valuable, make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell, and drop a comment below telling me which of these habits you've been guilty of. Share this video with every Ford owner you know who tows, because most of them are making at least one of these mistakes right now and don't even know it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.